the whole thing just started whirling like this. And I saw the most beautiful white unconditional love. And I could see other spirits going up. They looked like gray flashes. And then my mom's face came down and she had a big smile on and she said, "You can't come up any farther than this. You have 3 little children. You have to go back down." I didn't really have an awakening. Mine was more of already realizing I'm a spirit trapped in a body doing a human life. And I had to learn how to be human. And I thought, Margo McKinnon, yeah, that's a name. I know that's a name. Okay, but what does that mean, Margo McKinnon? Then it said, "You are a teacher." So that teacher is my anchor. So when I get lost in life, you're a teacher. That's your anchor. And then I remembered who I was. Oh yes, that's right. I'm Margo McKinnon, the teacher.
Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. Welcome back to the Soul Podcast, Light Beings. Very excited to be here with you today with a very exciting guest. Dr. Margo McKinnon is an educator with a PhD from Oxford and the author of The Exquisiteness of Being Human and the Body, Mind, Spirit, Soul, Oneness, Dominance Theory, which we are definitely going to talk about. Welcome to the podcast, Margo.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for inviting me. I'm excited.
I am too. And you're a fellow Canadian, so we both have that in common. And you are also someone that one of our listeners, a couple of our listeners wrote in and requested that we have on the podcast. And so a shout out to those listeners that connected us because here we are now.
Well, I feel really appreciated. Thank you, whoever that was. Massive appreciation.
Yes, weaving the web of connection. I love it. And so, Margo, I'm so interested in your journey. And one of the elements that I find really fascinating is, and whenever somebody comes on, we like to ask about their awakening story. And you said you arrived here in this human experience already awake, which I think for many people, that would be an interesting way to experience the world at first. So I'd love to hear from you. How was it growing up, being young, and already having this rather direct connection to who it is that you really are? What was that like growing up?
Well, when I talk about awake, I hear people talking about their awakening experience, and I say, well, I didn't really have an awakening. Mine was more of already realizing I'm a spirit trapped in a body doing a human life. And I had to learn how to be human. And what this looked like, if you wanted to know, as a child, I had this very deep, and I say male only because it was a deep voice, that would speak very directly to me. I had other little spirit voices that sound like, "Hi, you have to listen to me." But the male deep voice, I had to really pay attention to what it was saying. And I say this was my first recollection of that voice, but I know it was earlier than that, but children only have memories for starting at certain periods of time. But so the first one that I guess shaped the trajectory of my life, I was 4 years old. I lived in Quebec City. My family was all in the basement watching television, and I had to slip upstairs in the dark to put my little doll Michael to bed. And my parents were fantastic. So there was a little crib in the living room, and I would put my little doll Michael in there, and I was pulling up his blanket, and out of the darkness I heard, "You are to be a teacher." And I said,
Wow.
Okay. I had other opportunities in my life to do other things, maybe cooler things that would bring me all over the world and all of that. But I had to stay true to that voice, and I made that promise at 4 years old.
Wow.
But I was telling this story on a podcast, and then I got thinking, well, actually, that voice came in sooner. I remember we used to live in Cocoa Beach, Florida, when I was a little kid, and my dad was a space scientist, and he worked at the space base there. And so anyway, they decided that they were going to rent what was basically back in the 60s, a little shack on the beach. And we all lived in this shack on the beach. Now I realize it was a mid-century modern bungalow, but at the time in the 60s. So we had this beach house, and I remember swimming, and I didn't have helicopter parents. I had parents who just let us free rein when we were playing. So I was about 3 years old, and I was swimming, and I was actually on my surfboard, and I was going like this on my surfboard, and then it tipped and I fell off, and the waves kept pushing me down, and the undertow was pulling me this way. And I could see my parents. They weren't very far away, but they were talking, and they didn't see that I was struggling. And I was getting really tired and getting really scared, but the waves were such that I couldn't call to them. And then I heard that voice, and it said, "With the next wave, let it push you down, dig your toes into the sand, and push towards shore. Let the waves carry you in."
Wow.
And I remember going and seeing my parents. "Didn't you know I was almost drowning?" And but I think about that voice, and I thought, it comes in to protect me, to guide me. It comes in to rescue me. And when I think, oh, this is a struggle, I don't know how to handle it, I think of that. Just push your toes in and let the waves carry you to shore. Metaphorically, you know.
Yes, there's so much to that guidance in the moment and then broader. It's so interesting too that that voice was so specific. Like it had a very obviously clear understanding of the physical situation that you were in. Who do you think, or what do you think that voice is?
So as a child, I had this deep voice, but I had other voices also. But I knew I was a spirit that had to do this thing called human. I knew it felt like I was putting on a body suit every day to go out into the world. And I could see spirits, especially at night. I could see spirits in my room. And I had a really wonderful mom who would do ghost busting of my room every single night. And she
love that.
Look under the bed. Do they go in your closet? Are they behind the curtains? And we'd do this. But the problem was they'd come in the night. And I think I was the only child of theirs that could crawl into their bed at night because they knew I used to see things in the night. So I had that sensation, but I also had this sensation of I needed to retreat from the world and just lie on my bed so that I could that was the way I needed to center myself. And I would talk to those voices and I'd say, how long do I have to stay here? When do I get to come home? How long do I have to do this? Breathe. And even now I think, oh no, I'm remembering I'm breathing. And then breathing seems hard again. How long do I have to keep eating food? And it was this real sensation. But I also had that, I could see into the future, but I didn't know I was seeing into the future. But I was getting these impressions, visual impressions. And it wasn't until I grew older that I thought, oh, there we go, it's happened. And that's what it was like for me when I say I didn't have an awakening. It was more of how do I do this thing called being human? Because being human is a very complicated thing. It requires huge amounts of skill sets, and some people are better at being human than others.
That's so fascinating of having that awareness so young that who it is you are and where home is. You mentioned, when can I go back home? You even had this inclination, this knowing rather, that this wasn't reality. And it was inherent to your experience, not something that it seems like religion taught you or your parents taught you. Like you just knew that to be true.
Exactly.
And so,
And I would be lonesome for that home.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for people that feel that lonesomeness, that maybe they don't even know that's where it's actually coming from, is that the reality that is, that this is not home ultimately. How do you navigate that, or how did you navigate that, of trying to find a way to be more human and to be settled into the human experience, because that's why you were here, right? How did you navigate that and not get, I guess the other side of that coin could be very lonely and very isolated and feeling misunderstood and like you're not where you're supposed to be?
Yes. The very fortunate part for me was that I had that voice. I was never alone. I had my guides that were telling me, and I was to be a teacher. I did become a high school teacher. I taught high school English. And then I started using the tools that that voice was teaching me so that I could help these students. But, I taught high school English. It was studying Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, where Hamlet sees his father's ghost at the top of the castle. And so I'd say, has anybody ever seen a ghost before? Oh, I have. My grandmother has. My house, I lived in a haunted house. They'd want to spend a whole hour. They'd probably spend the whole semester. They loved it so much, but talking about their ghost stories. The kids were having experiences of their own. Unfortunately, in our school system, there's no space for kids to explore that very real part of life. After all, we will all die eventually. And it is a concern of theirs. They're waking up to the idea that there is some unknowns about their life and they want to explore that. But there was no place. But in my classroom, we could. And Hamlet says, when he sees his father's ghost, he's thinking, is this my imagination? Is this coming from good, or is this coming from the devil? Should I believe this ghost? And I asked my students, when you saw yours, did you have those same questions? How did you know it was real? And so we'd have these conversations. But to answer your question, it would mean I'd have to get into the biggest vision that voice has given me in my life so far. I'm hoping that I get another big one. Feel free to deliver me another big one, but this was the biggest one so far. So I'd have to get into that.
Yeah, well, let's come back to that. I'm sure everybody is wondering, what or who do you think that voice is that's been guiding you your whole life?
I never really knew. I mean, people like to tell me who they think it is, but I don't know. I was speaking at a conference in Canterbury many years ago, and I was talking about my model and how you can apply it to teaching. And this minister was there, and it was in Canterbury, so he belonged to the Canterbury Cathedral. And everybody seemed to know who he was, so I guess he was up in the top echelon in the church. And he was listening to my story, and he said, why do you think that God isn't, or why that voice isn't God? And I said, because I'm little Margo McKinnon from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And he said, the way you describe that voice is how God talks. I'm okay now with saying it's God talking to me. Why do I think that? Because this voice is so profoundly interested in helping create unconditional love in this world. And when it speaks to me, it speaks about that and how I can be an instrument to help bring that down here. And I think that this whole teaching, be a teacher, that this is what I'm supposed to be teaching now, because I left high school teaching. I went on to get my PhD in Oxford. So then sorry, a little pop-up has come in. I went off to Oxford and I got my PhD in, if we were going to bring spirituality into public education, what would our model look like? So that students would have a space to talk about these profound and mysterious questions about the human experience. But now, if you want it to go into, that's who I think the voice is now. And
yeah.
I never saw it, but when I had the greatest vision of my life, it actually showed itself to me in my living room. And if there's an order to my story, and I highly recommend to all you viewing, if you're having spiritual experience, start writing out your own personal story. When did it start for you? What did you hear? And I'm hoping that as Crystal and I talk to each other today, we're so excited about our conversation today, but as you hear us get into these really, really juicy topics, that you'll say, oh, wow, you know what? I had that too. Oh, you're just jogging a memory for me. I highly recommend you write your story and see if you can start talking and figuring out where did these different messages come in for you.
I love that advice. I have so many journals at this point, and it's really fascinating to look back on them and how things connect in that you might not have understood at the time. And it's also interesting you have this voice. I have a voice as well. That's many different voices, but one that is maybe similar in character to what you're talking about. Again, I don't really put necessarily a name to it, but one of the things that came through for me, it was maybe a year and a half ago, and it was like drilling into my mind. It's so, it's not from your own mind because of the nature of how it comes in. I don't know if you experienced that too. You have a deep knowing that this has come in from somewhere else. And one of my voices said, start accessing that frequency now. And it was repetitive over 3 statements and just felt like it was kind of almost like bricks landing in my mind, and not a very intense way, but not in a necessarily bad way. It was just the intensity of the message. And so these voices, which sometimes are beyond a whisper, we talk about intuition. I talk about intuition sometimes being a whisper, but that for me was anything but a whisper. It was a booming experience. And you were guided to be a teacher so young. To have that clarity of the direction that you're going, I think is beautiful. And being a teacher as a role, as a guide, I think is such a profoundly important role to be playing on the planet right now. And so I would love to understand about how this grand vision as your purpose materialized in your life. How did this vision meet you? And of course, we're going to want to hear about how that intelligence was visually presented to you in your living room.
Well, I'm always excited to talk about this, Crystal. So I could talk about this all day long. When I said to really think about your story and there, even in your darkest moments, you can say, oh, okay, I'm in this part of the trajectory of my life. I can see it. And I had I call it my years of despair, because I had gone through a divorce early. My kids were young. They were in primary school, like 3, 5, and 7. And I was really, pit of despair. And I remember dropping them off at their dad's house to carry on to work. I was crying so hard, Crystal, that I had to pull over, and I wasn't safe to drive, is what I'm saying. I wasn't safe to drive, so I had to pull over and let this. And then that voice came in, and because my kids were going to go to their dad's place for 4 days, and it was my early on days, and I wasn't, I couldn't imagine not even one night without. It still makes me, and it's been over 30 years. But I remember pulling over, and the voice came in and it said, Margo, you can either cry for 4 days, or you can take the 4 days to get your life back, to remember who you are.
Ooh, chills.
Right? And I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. And I started, exploring all parts of myself. Was I an artist, a fashion designer, a filmmaker? And I was off exploring all these different things. Was I a pie maker? I tried everything on my own time when my kids were at their dad's place. I didn't go out and buy all the equipment and spend a lot of money. I did simple things to just try and bring it in, to explore it. And I became happier and happier because I was remembering all the pieces of myself that I had given away. And I was also doing a lot of Indigenous ceremony at the time. And one of them, I don't like to talk about the actual ceremony because we're not really supposed to talk about them. Enough is to say, I don't do any chemical enhancements. This was this always has to, I'm a hardcore.
Yeah.
It has to be all normal and natural and everything. For me, that's what works for me, because I was born with it already. I wasn't trying to bring anything on. I just wanted mine to get more honed and more kind of disciplined. Mm-hmm. But I was doing an Indigenous ceremony. It was a 4-day fasting ceremony. And it was in the hot sun, and it was without all the details, but it was a group fasting ceremony. And on day 3, you had to dance under the hot sun. It was like over 100 degrees, and there parts of the ceremony. And suddenly the whole thing just started whirling like this. And then the next thing I was whirling up, and I saw the most beautiful white unconditional love. Like I had to open my eyes really big, and then I thought, if I open my mouth really big, I can get my eyes to be bigger. So I'm not quite sure why I thought my pupils were going to be bigger if I opened my mouth, but I was like, and it was just infusing with me. I was just so excited. It was just filled with unconditional love. And then my mom, who had passed 2 years earlier, came down, and I could see other spirits going up, like they looked like gray flashes going up. And so it was going up like this, and I was going up like this. And then my mom's face came down, and she had a big smile on, and she said, you can't come up any farther than this. You have 3 little children. You have to go back down. And once have you experienced that unconditional love? Have you gone over to the other side?
I have, yeah.
Did you feel it?
I did. It's beyond relational love. It's a all-encompassing, almost like the physical form can't hold it completely. It's
that's a beautiful way of putting it. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I was going up, and it was just it was like brilliant, and it infuses your whole being, like you're a part of it. And then she said I had to come down. So then my spirit came back into my body, and my body was laying on the ground. And then my spirit came back in, and I could still hear the drums. The drums were still going, because this ceremony, it's like, if you die, you die. I mean, that's part of it, right? No one's going to come and rescue you or anything. It's part of that means it was your time to go. So anyway, mine didn't go. It came back in. And I looked at my hand, and I didn't know what my hands were. I didn't know who I was. And then that voice came in and said, you are Margo McKinnon. And I thought, Margo McKinnon, yeah, that's a name. I know that's a name, people. Yep, that's what I was. Okay, but what does that mean, Margo McKinnon? Then it said, you are a teacher. So that teacher is my anchor. So when I get lost in life, you're a teacher. That's your anchor. And then I remembered who I was. Oh, yes, that's right. I'm Margo McKinnon, the teacher. So I had this brilliant unconditional love feeling, but life here, I don't know if this happened to you, but life here on earth felt harsh, abrasive, unnecessarily cruel. And I was just like, oh man, I'm back. But, I have my kids and I love them so much. And I thought, well, I better turn this experience into something good. And I decided that I was going to try and replicate that unconditional love wherever I went. And I thought, I'm going to start with myself because I was coming out of my pit of despair, right? Bring that unconditional love to myself, my children. I wanted to create this space where my children could share anything they needed to share with me. I was never going to fly off the handle or get angry at them or anything. Just tell me what it is. If I can help you, I will. And if I can't, I'll find somebody who can. Then I'm going to bring in that unconditional love to my classroom. All my students knew, if you're struggling, you can come to me. If I can help you, I will. I'm not going to fly off the handle. I'm not going to report you. Well, crime, you can't do crime, but I'll even support you getting whatever that is. And I managed to help a lot of kids who were coming from very challenging backgrounds. That's where I felt I did my best work, was with those kids, bringing in that unconditional love. I wanted them to know how it's done. How do you create that acceptance? How do you create that space where people can be themselves, which I think is unconditional love.
Absolutely.
For you to have that space to be entirely yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned in that experience, it sounds like you had a complete ego death as well. And then you were relating to who it is that you really are and connecting to that identity. I find that very interesting because I had a similar experience where I saw my sense of self rebuild one thought at a time, and I could see the foundational thoughts that all of my other beliefs were built upon. It was like this stacking of beliefs and orientation to who Crystal Cassidy was and is. And so since then, I've had a very different relationship to who it is that I am from an identity standpoint. It's like, oh yeah, this is my human. This is Crystal. This is something that's been created, and it's not really who I am as a whole. And then the other thing I find so beautiful is I totally relate to this of once you've experienced that connection and that love. And I even think the word love is limiting because I think so many people have a relationship to love being relational. And in this case, it is, but it's beyond the human capacity to orient to that word. And so unconditional love, you hear it a lot, but the actual experience of it, you can't unknow it, you can't unsee it. And then I felt very similar to you. It's okay, what do I do now? You've seen that expansion, you've experienced that unconditional love. And I love what you chose to do, which is how much of that can I bring into this earth plane? How can I bring that down into this dimension? And that's really how I orient to purpose too at this point, is how much of my soul, this vastness of consciousness, can I bring down into the earth-based experience? And I think that's really the secret for the reason that we're here, that so many people wonder about. So I'd love to hear from you, now that you'd had this exposure to this vastness and you're bringing it down into this dimension, did that really accelerate your purpose? I feel like it would have to. At least it did for me.
It really did. And it accelerated it in terms of what I understood, but it accelerated my career path. And can I tell you a story? I don't think I've ever told it on another podcast before because
Please.
it was just so strange. It was so strange, right? Anyway, I had this experience, and I realized that I was actually having a near-life experience, because people would want me to talk about my near-death experience. And I'd get up on the stage and I'd say, well, during my near-life experience, I mean my near-death experience. But I realized that I had been holding myself back in my life. And I thought, I need to start pouring myself into my life and really find the exquisiteness of my life. And when the first telling of this vision that I had, I chose the title for my book was The Exquisiteness of Being Human, because that book, I was determined to find the exquisiteness of my life. Anyway, I wrote that book, and I was, which we still have to get to what that model is, but I wrote that book, and I went to one of those spirit soul trade shows, and my friend came with me to set up my booth and everything. It was my first time at a trade show, and it was quite a big one. And she was setting it up. It was a Friday night. And I said, oh, you can take off now. You know, it's Friday. I can do the rest myself. Well, at some point I needed to see what time it was. So I was trying to get my cell phone out of my purse, and I looked, and my wallet was gone. And I had this long wallet, like one of those men leather wallets. It was gone. And I thought, oh no. And I looked in all my baskets and everything that I had hidden under my table, gone. And I said to the spirits, you can't take my wallet like human beings need. Because, you know, I didn't have an awakening, right? I have this constant interaction with these spirits. I said, you can't just go and take my wallet, because human beings need wallets. It's got my driver's license, my Visa card, my debit card in there. And so it's not funny for you to it would never cross my mind that somebody would steal it. It was the spirits took it. Anyway, I
love that.
Wasn't in my car, and I keep a very tidy car, not there. And I had to go the whole week, and I had to close up my Visa. And on Monday, I had to go and get my new driver's license and everything. And okay, so that would have been May. Then I was running these workshops, and this woman, and I really believe, start having a real life experience. Find out what your spirit wants to do. Get your life back. Go and explore all these things. And she's wrote to me and said, listen, I was in your workshop, and I decided I was going to go into art. So I'm in an art show. It's near your place. Can you come and drop in? And I said, okay. So I dropped in, and I saw, I'm trying to get all the little points. This is why everybody needs to write their stories down. I went in, and there was a professor that I had done workshops with using my model in spirituality and all my understandings. And he was from the Faculty of Medicine. And he had wanted me to be in a study because he wanted to study my brain and how I could make these things happen and do healing and everything. So but I didn't want to do that. Anyway, I didn't want to go through MRIs or anything so I was talking to him. And then I said to the woman that I went to see, I said, would you have to be here all day. Do you want me to get you a coffee? I'll go out to Starbucks and get you a latte. So I did, and I came back, gave her the latte. Then this professor, I said, I think I'm ready to do my PhD at Oxford. And he said, I'll be one of your referees if you need and I said, awesome. That'd be great. And then he said, then you'll have somebody from the Faculty of Medicine. So I went out into the parking lot, Crystal. I looked up at the sky, and I said, I'm ready now. I'm going to go straight home, and I'm going to get my application into Oxford. I opened my car door. This is October, Crystal. I lost it in May. I opened my door, and there was my wallet sitting there on the seat of my car, like a big man's wallet. I told my engineer,
oh my gosh.
He said, you were sitting on it the whole time. And I said, oh yeah, I was sitting on my wallet. Ooh, I don't know what that is that I'm sitting on, but
Ooh.
oh well, from May until October. So anyway, I got into Oxford
Wow.
and did my PhD. So do you see what I'm trying to get at
I
is
do. Yeah.
the
Full body
God,
chills.
yeah, universe, spirits will drop these breadcrumbs for you, coordinate things for you. So when you stop always using this thing and you start really opening yourself up. So this, going up into the light, and I think you're right, it was a dropping off of who I was. So it even took my identity, Crystal. That's why I'm telling you the story. You said, it was a dropping off of identity. Well, what is your wallet? Your driver's license, all your
Oh,
healthcare
yeah.
cards, all your everything's in your wallet. Your whole identity is in your wallet and it was taken. So I think you're right. And you know what? I've never thought of that until just now. Thank you, Crystal, for bringing that
Oh,
up.
thank you. That is such a powerful story. And I love that. I think one of the other parts of this story that's so impactful is that you were meeting the divine, if you want to call it that, halfway, right? You had made a choice. You're doing the thing. And then when that alignment comes in with your purpose, that example, it's magical. I mean, it's just you can't explain it. It is the divine speaking back to you and giving you a really powerful um, wink from the universe, if you will. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
So, yes, once I had that going up into this unconditional love, and I promised when I came back down that I was going to replicate that as best I could where I went. And so now I don't know what it's like where you live, but a lot of people are fighting right now, like about politics and everything
Yeah,
and their
yeah,
different belief
absolutely.
systems. And people are really fighting and getting into these arguments. And you know what my line is? I say, oh, that's really interesting. I would like to be that space where people with diverse views can come together and have these discussions. That's how we learn. That calm space, that white light space, that unconditional love space, that calm, patient space, so we can have these conversations. And that's my line. And if anybody wants to use it, go ahead. But what was the big vision then? Can we get on to that?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so after I had that near-death experience and things started to open up, along came my school principal. So this is another alignment that the universe planned out for me. Along came my principal and said, could you go and get your master's degree? Because you need to have a master's degree to become a high school principal, and we want you in the leadership pool. And I said, okay. All right, I'm already a single mom. I've got 3 kids. I work full time. I've got marking till 11 o'clock at night. I go to every single baseball game. I make all my own food from scratch. But okay, I'll do a master's degree. Let's pile that on. So I worked away at my master's degree, and I actually did it on teacher learning. And we had to take 10 courses and write a thesis. So I took all these, stats courses, research methodology and everything. And I took the last course was for myself, and it was called Philosophy of Mind.
Ooh,
And the first
yeah.
homework question was, how are the body, mind, spirit related? I thought, oh, yeah, awesome. Okay, great. And I came home and I like to make sure my house is really nice and polished because the spirits that talk to me like me to live in a very uncluttered, shiny, clean place. And so I just came home, gave a little wipe, a little, make sure everything's good, lit a candle, got my pad of paper out. And I asked the voice and I said, so how are the body, mind, spirit related? And I had always heard that voice, but for the first time it came into my living room. And it was didn't have a lot of physical features, but it was like this big shape. And it should have gone through my ceiling, like it was that huge. And I was just looking at it like I was in my near-death experience, where I was just like, wow, hello. It was so excited, Crystal, that I had asked that question. You'd think, wow, is there anything else that's different out there on body, mind, spirit? Well, yes, there is. There are still things we don't understand yet. It said we have 5 dimensions, not just 3. Human beings have a body, a mind, a spirit, a soul, and I interrupted and I said, spirit and soul, I thought they were the same thing. No, they're 2 different parts. Okay. I love that your podcast is SoulPod, so we'll get to that. We'll talk about why you came up with that title. So soul and oneness. I said, okay, what are they? Your body is, and this is my body, your body looks like that, but it's also anything physical, tangible around us. You have a body, you have a mind, and the mind part of you is your logical, rational self. It's your system self that helps you navigate down here on earth. So it does your taxes for you, your to-do list, math, science, all those things. Your spirit is the part of you that came from unconditional love and will go back into unconditional love. It's my spirit was the one as a little girl lying on my bed going, how long do I have to stay here? When do I get to go home? It's your eternal self. I believe in reincarnation. So your spirit has had many lifetimes. That's your spirit. Your soul is your purpose. Why are you here? Why did your spirit decide to incarnate at this time in history and in these conditions? Oneness is the part of you that is connection and belonging, and that is that white light infusion, that unconditional love infusion of connection and belonging. Okay, let's work through it again, because some people might still be confused. I still don't really see the difference between spirit and soul. Okay. It said you're born dominant in one of those dimensions and you grow the others over time. Body dominant people, their spirit came in, loved being human, loved the hair, makeup, nails, fashion, design, food, different spices. They think about what they're going to eat and plan, and dinner parties. I'm not that, by the way. Dinner parties. But man, I love to go to body dominant people's houses for dinner because they go all out and it is so beautiful. The music, the candles, the linen napkins. I had to increase my body. So I'm not body dominant, but I'm body competent, and I'm happy with competent. And mind dominant. They really love the logical, rational Excel spreadsheet systems. They tend to be the managers, like the CEO of a hospital, the head of a hospital, head of education, law. So they love my daughter is mind dominant. And so I had to learn how to be her mom better, because I'm a spirit dominant person. So being a spirit dominant and having a mind dominant daughter. So we've worked out beautifully over time how to have a relationship. So mind dominant, spirit dominant, you are more attached to that unconditional love, peacefulness. Your spirit looks out at a world that seems unnecessarily harsh, abrasive, and cruel. Sometimes it just wants to go home now. It can feel like a stranger here on earth. How long do I have to stay here? Can feel like a stranger down here. That's your spirit. But there's hope, everybody, because you can find your exquisiteness. And I hope we get there today too, Crystal.
Yes, we will.
And then soul dominant is your purpose is the most important thing. And I had soul dominant students in my class that thought, I don't need to be going to school for this. I can figure this out on my own. because they had such a singular soul purpose. Sometimes they were musicians, artists. That's what they wanted to do. And so very driven by their purpose. One time I was giving a workshop to writers, and there would have been about 50 of them, and I'm taking them through the 5 dimensions. And one man stood up and he said, "Not all writers have to have a big soul purpose in their writing." And I said, "This is true. It just means you're not soul dominant." Which is fine. You can be a different dominance, right? A lot of mind dominant people are writing books too. So soul dominant. Oneness dominant, they prefer connection and belonging. And they're team builders, and they worry about tragedies happening elsewhere. Now, I have low oneness. Like, I'm going to just show you. This isn't to sell books, but if you want to buy one, you can. But here it is. I love the idea that each dimension is equal, in size. One isn't prioritized. I love that this looks like a human stick figure.
It's also, a peace sign there.
And a peace sign, yes.
So for those of you listening on audio, we're showing it's like a pie chart of the different elements, the different dimensions of self. And I love this. I have a lot of thoughts coming up as I'm like, I must be likely soul dominant, which makes sense coming back to the name of this podcast. But you were talking about writers, and I was like, I just finished writing a science fiction novel that feels very much like that's one of the reasons I came here in this lifetime, is to have written what I just wrote. And so some dots connecting for me there personally. Very fascinating.
But you know what, Crystal? Like, people say, I really don't know where I'm at, because you have all 5 dimensions. What is the goal? I switch mine on, switch mine off when I need to. And you can tell a lot by what you do when you're stressed. So body dominance, when they're stressed, perhaps let's say aging. And now they're like, oh no, I'm getting fat. Look at the wrinkles. Oh, my hair. I better get, filled with all kinds of chemicals. Do what you want, but just look at your motivation. Are you too self-critical about how you are? Do whatever you want. Part of being human is to explore the body part of life and go and get highlights, which I'm kind of sorry, Crystal. I'm getting my highlights re-put in on Thursday. And so I should have had them all ready for today, but oh well.
Looks beautiful.
Oh well, so I'm not body dominant, or I would have had that all done for you and get my hair cut too. I got the lipstick on, and there's my competence. But body dominance, and if you're taking steroids because you want to do, and you're harming yourself now because of how you see your body. Yeah. Heavy dieting, restrictions, and all of that. Mind dominant, when they get stressed, they can start objectifying people, because they're usually the boss. And they can start bossing everybody back into the system that they created that's falling apart, which is why they're stressed. So they can start feeling like they have to micromanage, so they can try and micromanage people back into this, and objectifying people, and sometimes calling people idiots. And my friend, she was driving me, and she's mind dominant, and she said, look at all these idiots on the road. Oh, another idiot. Oh, that idiot. And then finally, we were at a red light. I didn't say anything, and she turned and looked at me. I bet you think I'm kind of stressed because I've been using the word idiot. Yeah, kind of have. Like, not everybody's an idiot out there. We just have to have some, patience as we're driving along. Spirit, and I was heavily impacted by stressed out mind dominance.
That's interesting. You mentioned that.
I was heavily impacted.
I am too. They can get very and I have elements of this, like you're saying, everybody does, but hyper analytical and ruminating, I would think, because the mind is just like going around and around. Um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I definitely get stressed out by that.
Mm-hmm.
And the judgment of others, I have a hard time with that as well.
Well, I used to get, body dominance giving me helpful tips about how I could be prettier. And I was quite happy at being competent. Like, okay, I'm quite happy the way I am. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
But if we look at spirit dominance when they're stressed, they just want to recoil from the world and stay at home, get in their cozy sweatpants and a hoodie, and shut out the world and not answer their emails or their voicemails or just leave me alone. And sometimes just want to go home now. So that's what I used to be like until I discovered, no, go to another dimension, go and explore, go for a run. I liked running along the river. Go for a run, go get a nice meal, do something nice for yourself. Take your spirit on a vacation. I live near the Rocky Mountains. Take your spirit on a vacation out to the mountains. You always feel better out there. So I have ways of combating those feelings now, and now those feelings aren't there. Soul dominance, when they're stressed, they just go heavy duty. Like you can see those soul dominants show up for those TV shows like Dragon's Den, where they have this big thing that they want to do for the world, a big service thing for the world. And the mind dominant dragons are sitting there. They want the dollars and cents. How many buyers have you had? How many have you sold? How many, all the mind stuff. It's all important though, Crystal. So what I'm saying is, if you have a vision, go to the vision. Can you see it? Now pull it down and go to the mind dimension and say, okay, how can I strategize to get that vision in place? Okay, go to the body dimension. How can I materialize it here on earth? So with all my work and my meetup groups and webinars and everything, I teach them how to go into the spirit and soul vision, pull it down, strategize. Instead of, don't go straight away talking to a mind dominant, or you might feel defeated, because we operate differently, spirit and soul people. We vision differently. And I really don't want your vision to get squashed because a mind dominant doesn't quite understand it. So anyway, do that. And then oneness dominance, they'll say things like this to me. Well, Margo, I don't want to bring any children into this world because of all, starvation, climate change, all of this. And my reply is, well, don't bring children into this world. Bring children into the world that we're creating. And that starts with you. Be the type of parent that we need right now to bring children into the world of a new creation.
Beautiful. Bring them into a new world. I think that can give a lot of parents some hope there and some guidance. Because I've heard that from quite a few of my friends, bringing children into this. I was just talking about this yesterday with somebody that, he's nervous, or he feels even a bit guilty for bringing a child into the intensity of this moment on this planet. And I can understand that deeply. But I also believe that we're not here by accident, and that soul spirit decided to have this experience. So they're here for it. They're here for a reason. And I love that on the parent side, on the human side of starting with you. It always starts with each one of us, right? Finding that alignment within ourselves. That's what creates this world that we're all wanting to move forward to. And being that leadership, that's another thing I've been thinking a lot about, and why I love what you're doing in your work is we have almost a vacuum in leadership, it seems like right now, in people that are needed for new visions, new ways of thinking about things, new ways of leading and reaching people. And so this work and this time is so important.
Well, after I came up, here's the first book.
Oh,
After
beautiful.
I came up with this one, that voice told me I had to go to Scotland because I'm Scottish heritage. You can tell because my last name is McKinnon. So it said go to Scotland. So I took my son, who was 15 at the time, and we went off to Scotland for a few weeks. And I wanted to know why that voice wanted me to go to Scotland, because it didn't tell me originally. So anyway, I got there and I went to where my ancestors had left, and they left early 1800s and they got on those boats. And I wanted to see if I could feel from the land and see if I had any ancestral memories of what it was like for them to look out onto that ocean and get on a boat to the unknown and come all the way over to Canada. I wanted to feel it, and I wanted to stand in the same spot they stood, looking out onto the water. Anyway, I found this kind of rocks along, and there was one that was just the perfect shape for me. So I laid down, and I meditate by looking up like this in the same position as that near-death experience. And so I said, why did you want me to come to Scotland? And it said, what do you remember? And I said, I remember the wind. I remember the wind in the grass. Yes, your spirit likes the wind in the grass. That's why you like Calgary, because we're a grassland and the wind in the grass, which is nice to
Beautiful.
know. And it said too,
It is, yeah.
But my mind said, yes, but my ticket was pretty expensive to come to Scotland. Is that it?
Is that it?
Is
Wind
that
and
all
grass?
is that all there is for me? And I posed the question, which if you really want to know something, everybody, you just go into a very quiet space. I like outside, but my living room couch is just as good. And I pose questions. And I said, why did you give me this body, mind, spirit, soul, oneness, dominance theory at this time in history? And it said, because body dominance are killing the earth with materialism. Mind dominance have created such a structure for us to live in that a lot of people don't want to live in it anymore and they want to come home. What you're to do, it said for me, which is my next big thing I'm supposed to be doing, is your job is to help spirit dominant people get the skill set that they need to become the leaders in the world. Because what happens to them is when they get stressed and they see the world as unnecessarily harsh and abrasive, they retreat and they don't want to go out in the world. But we have to find ways to go out into the world in kind of, I call it in the white light. So when I come, I meditate in the morning and I meditate at night, and I meditate into the white light. And when I come down out of the white light, I say, I am the white light. I am the white light. So teach spirit dominant people how to walk in the white light of peacefulness, calm, intelligence. We still need our minds. That's why I went to Oxford to get my PhD, because I thought I need to go to a very rigorous university so that I can train myself to speak to mind dominant people and have them understand that spirituality is a very important thing. And it's not the same thing as religion. They thought it was. They thought it was the same as religion. So it was really a difficult process. But that voice said to me, help spirit dominant people get the skills they need so that they can step up and take over the leadership
Ooh,
and lead us
that,
forward. So that's what I do. I run all
yeah,
kinds of lessons and everything on that.
that is so, and that's it's so beautiful, because that's exactly what I was getting in our conversation, is there's this needed leadership. And you're totally right. The reaction so many times to the abrasiveness of the world is to retreat and to go back to the mountaintops or the caves and meditate and awaken and go on your journey as an individual. But I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm just so glad that you're working on this, is how do we actually call those people forward, and to your point, give them the skills that they can balance the elements, the dimensions of self, and also lead, that you don't have to sit in the background of society anymore, that those people can come to the foreground because we need it. And I've been feeling that for quite a while. I'm like, where are these people? Like, can we get them into the foreground of leadership? And one of the things that I realized, and again, this isn't necessarily that some are better than others, it's just different experiences and different stages of evolution. But a lot of the people that step into these leadership positions are so understandably ego aligned through accumulation and mind. And I think it's no mistake that AI is coming forward now. It's like the perfect representation of the linear mind at this point, at least. And there's this balancing that has to happen. And I think you going to Oxford and getting that degree, and there being some, I mean, it's so interesting to me that they thought that spirituality and religion are the same thing, even at that world-renowned institution. And I think because religion has been associated with spirituality for so long, people have a hard time separating the two. And so this work is so important. I'm curious, what do you think is the next step for those types of people to feel more comfortable in stepping forward and leading?
Well, I take them through, I have a sort of 7 lessons that we put together, which, if we walked through them all, I had to get my own it starts with yourself, right? So I had to get my own leadership skills honed. And I live in a condo now, and about 4.5 years ago, sorry, I keep moving around, but I like moving around.
You're okay.
So I took over being the condo chair because people in the building were saying, Margo, we're getting bullied on the condo board. And we have a president that is really bullying and harsh. We need some people to come on and kind of support. So now step 1 is find your people that want to do the same thing. Let's bring a new leadership and, okay, so let's band together and try and overcome this bullying. So anyway, I ended up becoming the president of the condo board. And I said, well, and I said to my very small team, by then we only had 3 of us, my very small team, we're doing spirit dominant leadership. What that means is, if it's really true, and I believe it is, that's my whole life, that we're all spirits having a human experience, we're going to focus on the human experience. So imagine you're managing a department somewhere. What is the experience of all the people? If you focus on the experience of those people and elevate that experience, make it memorable in a good way, you'll get results that you are unbelievable. So we're going to focus on people's experience. We're going to create a place. This is going to be a place where they can flourish. And that's what we're going to do. So we did a lot of things. I had to really confront. I couldn't run away from that bullying. There were a few bullies on there. I wrote them letters. This is unbecoming of a board member. for you to behave. And I would write down exactly what it was. And I'd say to my team, okay, are you prepared to sign this? Because we're simply not tolerating. We can't have, how I said, like, let's have a space where we can bring all of our ideas together. We don't need to be screaming and yelling and calling names. No. Well, anyway, I've managed, we've now changed the whole culture of this building over the last 4 years. We have saved our condo board probably $500,000 in the way we're going about it. We are now presenting at the Canadian Condominium Conference. We've been asked to present, and that's in October, because I wrote a paper on From Fractured to Flourishing, a cautionary tale. And I find we're living a fraction, where everybody feels fractured, divided, and people are fighting a lot right now. I don't know what it's like where you are, but
like that, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
And we have such great results. I had to run the AGM, the annual general meeting, last week, and I was giving my report, and I made a slideshow of all the examples of people flourishing and the building flourishing. Like, people are winning awards now. They're doing theater. One did a theater production. 3 people won an award. Somebody else published a book. So I had all these pictures of all these. And by the end of my talk at the AGM, people were clapping and cheering and excited for each other. So we went from fractured to flourishing to celebrating each other's accomplishments. And hey, isn't that the world you want to live in?
Absolutely. I love that. What if this nation, nationwide, what if it's not GDP that we're prioritizing, but human flourishing?
Yes.
I think that would shift so much. And we tend to assume that if we were to prioritize human flourishing, that something like GDP would be an issue. And it's like, no, flourishing includes all of it. The ability to be provided for and fulfilled in all dimensions of experience. I love that. That's such a great example.
But you know what happened in the meeting was people were saying, well, we want to help. Like, we don't want you guys having to do all this work, because we saved them $500,000 by taking on my friend.
They love it. Yeah.
We painted this whole we're good painters. We painted the entire interior ourselves, saving, I think it was supposed to be $75,000 for just the hallways, and we did the entire building for $19,000. And so I took on a project that I saved them about $400,000 by managing it. So it's not about just looking at your vision and saying, my vision is we live in a flourishing world. Okay, where people have the space to flourish and they get excited about flourishing. Okay, that's my vision. How do I pull that down? Well, I'll become the condo board president then. And I'm going to practice my leadership skills until I see signs of flourishing. And now I have this big slideshow of all these people flourishing where they're all clapping and cheering each other on, which is what I was hoping for. It's better than my vision ever thought about. And then I have the tangible evidence, and now I'm writing about it, and now we're going to go and present it. We have a new condo board member who left the board. He was a young guy, about 27. He left the board because he said, I just don't want to be with all this bullying and people yelling at each other. Like, we're volunteers. I don't want to. Well, now he's come back onto the board because we're back into flourishing. And so he's a circus performer. So we're going to have him juggling at the beginning. And he's a comedian juggler, right? And so we're going to have him juggling as a comedian. And then we're going to start with our fractured to flourishing.
I love it. That sounds like so much fun.
Well, life is supposed to be fun, Crystal. Why are we making it so hard?
So serious. So hard. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
We're heading for easy. We're ready for easy, Crystal. So
Ready for easy.
I keep calling the universe in. Okay, make this. Well, we didn't, I needed a landscape architect, but we had no money to hire one. So I said, we need a landscape. Well, guess who moved in? A landscape architect. She's going to design the entire front landscaping for $1,000 just to get the plants. And then we're all going to go out and plant them all because we want our building to look like it's flourishing inside and out. So
I love it. I love it. Well, Margo, I could chat with you all day long, and you are welcome back anytime. But we do a rapid fire series of questions with all of our guests. Are you ready?
Oh, nervous.
Don't be. No right or wrong answers here. So the first question is, what is one belief that you've held that you no longer hold?
What is a belief I held that I no longer hold? I think going quiet when somebody is yelling and screaming and retreating. I used to think I was being spiritual by keeping my peace. But now I realize I'm just feeding them. So I can bring my unconditional love forward by simply saying, I'd like to be the space where we can have conversations that are peaceful and calm, that we can enjoy.
That resonates. Beautiful. Thank you. The next question is, what is consciousness in your terms?
I had to learn more about consciousness, the mind consciousness, about how to live down here. But we have a spirit consciousness. We have a body consciousness also. And we have so we have the 5 dimensions, all have their own consciousness. And I turn mine on and turn them off. So consciousness is a sense of awareness for me. So it's a point of contact, like our body consciousness. Well, if it hurts, find out why it's hurting in your body. But you have a mind my spirit consciousness. I've trained my spirit I know that I can send my spirit. If your spirit can come out when you die, it can come out right now. It's like a free agent. So I can send mine around and get things done with my spirit consciousness. I don't know if I even answered that, Crystal.
You did. I love that. It's a free agent. Send your spirit out.
Yes.
Beautiful. And what is source, God, or oneness to you?
For me, it's that voice that I think is a little disappointed at how this great plan has turned out. And I think, so it is the one, oneness, little disappointed. And I said to that voice, I'll be one of those people to help you. I know you need help down here. So you deliver and I will do it. So you tell me what you want me to do. You want me to do spirit dominant leadership? Okay. And I will do that. I want to be somebody who's helping to create this flourishing world again. I'm hoping everybody out there wants to join our team to do it the same.
I think so. We're building a coalition here.
Yeah, in your own way, whatever your way is, but focusing on how can we create more flourishing here. Get ourselves back on track.
Great question to sit with. How can we create more flourishing here? Beautiful. And if it were 100 years in the future on this planet, what would you hope for humanity?
Well, I would hope that my big vision comes into being. And that young people have found a way to raise children with a higher vibration, where where we are, that our climate issues have been taken care of, that we can bring stability and joy back here. That's what I'm hoping for.
Beautiful. And how can people connect further with you if they'd like to?
they can go on my website, which I think you'll probably be posting there, but it's drmargomckinnon.com, DR, and there's a T on my name, MargotMckinnon.com. My book's on there, my webinars. We're just coming to the end of this series, but I'll be posting up new dates, and you can go and look and see if you want to get involved in that. Once you graduate from there, people tend to want to, they miss it. So I have a once a month group. So when they graduate there, then we carry on, but it's just a once a month. And of course, you can book a session if you wanted to have a chat with me, and we can talk about all these things as well.
Amazing. Well, light beings, check out all of that. And Margo, I'm deeply grateful for this time together. It has been fun and illuminating and full of wisdom. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. And until next time, light beings. Thank you for journeying with us today, light being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul-nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.